let's get on to the film. I watched Tennessee today. We broke it down. I think we spent about 40 minutes. How long was film breakdown today? 35 minutes?
About 40 minutes.
35, 40 minutes over there on Tennessee's offense. Okay, we broke it down, watched it on the film. If you want to check that out, it's on Patreon, patreon.com/Brooks Austin. Also comes with one of the best Georgia communities active over there on Discord as well. So patreon.com/Brooks Austin if you want to watch that. All right, if you don't, I'm about to give you the synopsis of it, and it's probably going to make you want to watch it. So let's go. Let's talk about offensive line first and foremost. They used to run a lot of H insert, and they still do, but it was like their primary play, right? They're going to take the H back, a.k.a. their tight end, and they're going to just plug him right into the middle of the offensive line. It was basically their way of running, for you old school folks, fullback ISO, right? Just a lead block right down the middle of the line of scrimmage. Okay, it's basically their way of doing that. You remember watching film study last week, or if you watched it on Monday, talking about tackle power, where Ole Miss was pulling the left or right tackle and kind of inserting him on the front side of the play while down blocking, okay, on the front side of the play as well, just trying to add a hat to the front side. Tennessee does it as well. Very similar concept. So you're going to have some carryover from this week to last week in terms of run design, how they're going to attack you. It was funny that Kirby kind of alluded to this earlier in the week, said it's a very similar assignment in terms of alignment and assignment. They run a lot faster. They play a lot faster. But in terms of just what they do and how they do it from a run game perspective, it's relatively similar. It showed up on tape today when I watched it, okay, particularly with that tackle and that H insert, which are two things that you guys repped and played against last week against Ole Miss. Now, Tennessee fans listening and watching this, your algorithm found it. You're not going to like this, particularly because I've noticed that the Mays family did a lot of good for Tennessee football. It was kind of a win for you guys over Georgia, I would imagine you feel, okay? A 2-year starter for you, and the younger brother going to start for you for almost like 3.5, I think. But I'm here to tell you, I've been watching Cooper Mays fall on his face in the SEC for about 3 years now, and it's just not great. It's not great, Bob. And I watch it over and over and over and over again, and I'm just shocked. I'm shocked that they don't replace it. I'm shocked that, and I can relate to it. I said this on film today because I was that guy. I was lighting the ass playing center, okay? Believe it or not. At one point, I was underweight for my job title. Now, drastically the other side, but that's beside the point, okay? This man's a little bit underweight, a little bit undersized, if you will, at that center position. He gets snatched on his face because he plays over his toes a little bit too much. He's not great in my opinion, and neither are they from the offensive guard positions either. 78, their left guard, super vulnerable from an athletic perspective. When I see these big uglies, when I see these guys that can't move laterally, I just know Georgia's going to eat their lunch, okay? Because Georgia does way too much when they notice you can't move laterally. If you can't move laterally, they're disciplined enough to run slants or run stunts against you and still maintain gap integrity. The tackles, they're big. They're really, really big. I think they're susceptible, as always, Tennessee tackles are, to the speed rush, except for Darnell Wright. That guy was a superstar. He was an NFL football player. Let's talk a little bit about their run game extended to the running back room. They've magically, despite all of what I just told you about their offensive line, they've magically managed to run the football probably as good or if not better than anybody in this conference. Okay, so let's hard stop right there before we start talking about Jalen Wright, the running back. Guys, that tells me something about this system. It tells me something about Josh Heupel's offense. Okay, it's going to work. They don't have great offensive line play right now. From what I'm watching on tape, okay, they don't have a great passing attack from what we're all seeing, both in the box score and on tape. They have inconsistent quarterback play. Yet, despite all of this, they are still running the football highly effectively. Now, we can say it's about Jalen Wright. Okay, he's averaging 7.2 yards per carry, but the backup's averaging, I think, over 5, and his backup's averaging over 4.5. So they can still kind of run the ball no matter what, okay, despite all of the factors. So, again, hard stop. Kudos to Josh Heupel, because you're doing something that I didn't necessarily know was always going to be effective in this conference, okay, against elite line of scrimmage play, okay? So it's a good system for running the football. Let's talk about Jalen Wright. He doesn't need much room at all. At all. I'm talking about slivers, all right? Slivers of space, and this guy's just, whoop, right through. All right, he's a one-cut back. He's very, very akin to Alvin Kamara, in my opinion. He's very, very akin to my man Gibbs, Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama last year. Dude, as soon as he sees it, It's 100 it's 0 to 100 right now, all right? And that's why they've been so explosive on the ground, because as soon as there's daylight, all right, he's in the gas, and then once he's past that light box that we talked about earlier in Kirby's presser, all right, notes, when they get past that light box, it's 17, 18, 19 yards before someone's getting him down, all right, because everybody's so spread out outside the numbers. 7.2 yards per carry, and again, in my humble opinion, it's all him and run scheme. They do a tremendous job as well as of bouncing the football. This is a football team in Georgia that's like, hey, we want you to bounce the ball, right? Don't let you run north and south. That's the concepts at Georgia. Well, they kind of prefer to bounce. They're okay with it. You know why? Again, everybody outside the numbers. So this outside the tackle box to the top of the numbers, a lot of grass out there and a lot of room for them to bounce and get outside, and they do it well with counter. They log counter as well as anybody that I've seen. I haven't talked about log in a long time, but logging is essentially when you run counter and yeah. All right, here we go. See, again, what would you do with my ADD ass if we didn't have none of this? Again, magical. All right, so logging. Let's talk about logging. I had somebody in the comment section today saying, can we get like some basic terminology, shows? All right, log. I don't know why they called it a log. Can't tell you. But normally we have a log and we have a kick, right? A kick out block is on counter. All right, that front side guard pulls and he kicks out the end man on the line of scrimmage, right? We want to kick him out here and we're trying to crease this right here. But eventually, when teams started running counter over and over and over and over again, right? Eventually, this end started saying, man, shit, as soon as I see down block from this guy, I'm turning and I'm spilling. I'm going to squeeze, right? And they call it a dent now. Used to, they'd turn and spill, do it Chaz Chambliss style, run your face through that guy's face, just absolutely crush him. A lot of defensive ends don't really play like that no more. They pass rushers. They're not, bulls, okay, like Chaz Chambliss. So once guys started squeezing, offensive coordinators were like, all right, offensive guard, be an athlete. If you see this guy squeezing space and you can't kick him out, all right, we want to get to his upfield shoulder. We want to get to his outside shoulder and pin him inside. For some reason, they called it a log technique. That's what we have. All right, they do this really, really well. All right, and then the tight end is the one they actually run it with. This tight end, who I think is a non-threat in the passing game, all right, he does a great job of reading the block with the running back, all right? He has to be able to see and decipher what the guard's doing so he can either, hey, insert where there's a crease, right? If we kick out, we got to insert as the second guy, all right? But if we log him, if we get around the edge, we got to be able to bounce with the back and pick up whatever additional space defender ultimately comes, right? We got to pick up the +1 out there. So that's a log technique. They do a really good job of getting it executed, all right? And it's why they've been able to bounce runs so successfully. Man, again, who else doing it like that? Don't know. Matter of fact, ain't nobody but ESPN and Dan Orlovsky, and they got about, I don't know, $1 billion, something that we ain't got, but we got some effort and we got some ingenuity, all right, and we got dreams and aspirations that we get it done around here. I want to talk about this tight end because he a non-threat. Listen to this name, guys. McCallan Castles. McCallan Castles. I think he's a transfer from UC Irvine by way of Cal. So this is his third college. He is, of course, a fifth, maybe sixth-year senior, and he's about 6'6", 255 pounds. He might as well be an offensive lineman, all right? Against Georgia. I know what the stat sheet's going to say, Tennessee fans, so don't get pissed off. I think the difference between last year and this year, one of them that gets like completely overlooked, I thought Princeton Fant was a guy that could detach and actually like force coverage outside the box, all right? And then when he added in the box, he could also block really, really well. This kid blocks really well, but against a football program like Georgia where athletes are in abundance, this is a non-threat, a non-factor, okay? They can cover him with just about anybody. And even if he gets behind, they going to run that ass down. So I'm not necessarily worried about the tight end being a threat, though he is a good, serviceable blocker. Let's talk about the quarterback and wide receiver as we wrap things up here with our offensive film observations. We'll bring you the defense tomorrow. We're only halfway done cooking Tennessee. How about that? Or cooking up the recipe on Tennessee, I should say. I always forget, man. we can't just keep speaking to the Georgia audience because sometimes we be clipping these things for the Tennessee fans. And I'm not placating to you. I'd give it to you either way. But the jokes can't always lean your way. I got to give you back some the other way every once in a while. Even though I did give you compliments, I think the system's going to work. Quarterback, man. Milton is who I thought he was. He is who we thought he was. He stares it down always. All right. I watched the what tape did I watch today? We watched their most recent game. Who'd they just play? Missouri. We watched Missouri tape, and I'll be damned if the Missouri space defender, if the Missouri edge defender, if he ever practiced turning his head back around and picking a ball off, by God, he'd have about 4 of them. Because as soon as the ball snapped, Missouri's in bail. They're playing just, man coverage way off. So they're throwing a bunch of comebacks, all right, and a bunch of speed outs and a bunch of, real underneath stuff. Basically what Tennessee's been doing all year. It's why his yards per attempt are really, really bad, or not necessarily what they should be for a Tennessee offense, right? What you're seeing is okay, they're throwing everything underneath, and he's just downset. He just staring right at it. And all of a sudden, whoop, 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 everybody start floating over there. And again, he's got elite arm talent, so he just rips it over that guy's head, and that guy don't pay attention. That guy's not athletic enough to get his head around. Well, you about to play a team with a bunch of 5-stars, all right? And they are athletic enough to get their head around. So don't stare it down, Joe Milton, even though we're 10 games into this, all right, 5 years into this. And, yeah, he's still staring it down as a fifth-year guy. He's a good athlete. All right, he is. But I would take Jackson Dart as a runner over this. Jackson Dart will make you miss. Jackson Dart's sometimes hard to hit. But Jackson Dart's laterally a lot more athletic than this guy. He can evade pockets, and he can, again, make you miss. Joe Milton's best attribute as a runner is to hope he is going north and south. If he's got to make anybody miss, he's very, very vulnerable to taking big shots. All right, so there's that. I don't necessarily worry about the legs as much as I even did Hendon Hooker. Hendon was a tremendous athlete. He made guys miss quite often. But the overthrows, man, the overthrows from this guy on the underneath coverages, I mean, it's not if, it's when. It's going to happen. Every single time I've seen this dude throw speed outs, every tape I've watched, there's been a speed out thrown to the daggum sideline 3 rows up, essentially, where, Squirrel Wright's running a speed out, and he goes to jump, one hand sticks it up, okay, can't even touch it. Now, I know Squirrel Wright's 5'10", but come on, man. It's a lot. It's a lot to overcome from the quarterback position, and from the wide receiver position, they've been decimated. And it's part of the reason why Joe's struggled. All right, I don't think a lot of people talk about how much this offense is predicated off of options where, hey, if they do this, I do that, right? And when you have a bunch of moving parts, which they've had at the wide receiver position, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, and Brew McCoy, all right, all NFL football players, 2 of them gone to the NFL. One of them just broke his ankle earlier in the year, definitely not going to come back, not going to be available in this football game. So when you have a bunch of these moving parts, all right, I don't care how good Squirrel White is. I don't care how good the transfer Thornton is from Oregon. It's going to take a while, and it's taken longer than probably most expect. But that being said, they can still play downset hut, chuck it up. All right, they can still throw it 60 yards against one-on-one coverage and make you defend a deep ball. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is enough to create some scoring opportunities. And if you don't believe me, go back and watch Georgia Tech 2022, last year at home. Yep. Georgia Tech scores, I think, 21 points in that football game.
It was 17, I believe.
17, damn near wins Brent Kea's job, essentially. They played tough first half. You know that mean? You know that kind of thing. And all it was, downset hut, chuck it up. They had their matchup in the slot. And, this football team will find theirs in that same spot as well, but way out, extended outside the numbers.